Good morning, students. Today I am going to discuss with you chapter number 3, Our Changing Earth from Geography. So, my dear students, as I told you in my previous explanation about different types of forces which are working inside the earth and outside the earth. So, those forces which are working inside the earth is known as endogenic forces, which are responsible for the formation of volcanic activity and earthquake activity. And those forces which are working outside the earth or on the surface of the earth, like wind, moving water, and moving glacier from one place to another place, are responsible for the formation of different type of features on the surface of the earth. So, as I told you earlier about the work of sea waves, and students, sea waves are also busy in erosional and depositional activity, and the erosional activity which are responsible for the formation of sea caves, arcs and stack, and also cliff, and with the depositional activity of sea waves, beaches are forming nearby the shores of sea. Okay, after that your next topic is work of ice. So students, as I told you that glaciers are also moving from one place to another place. Students, you are all well known about the frozen ice into the sea, rivers, and also nearby the mountain areas due to the very low temperature, and we can see iceberg and glacier on those places of all around the earth where temperature is in minus or below 0 degree. So there on that places, when these glaciers are moving from one area to another area, so students, these moving glaciers are responsible for the erosion of land where they are moving. In this way, they are eroding nearby area due to the moving glaciers. So students, when these glaciers are moving from their own place to another direction, then they are eroding their lower portion. Students, I think you are all well known about the bulldozer, and during the time of the construction of road, to equal the surface area of the road, bulldozer is moving. So students, same as same, these glaciers are also moving and bulldozing or eroding their lower portion, and sometimes they expose or erode totally ice or soil whatever present there, and responsible to expose the solid rock below where from the glaciers are moving. And students, when sometime these glaciers are moving, then they are responsible for the carving or formation of deep hollow type of structure on the surface. And when due to the high temperature in summer, when ice melts, then those deep hollows filled up by the water, and these filled hollows structure is responsible for the formation of fresh water lakes. Students, in Uttarakhand you can see this type of beautiful lakes which are also the example of fresh water lake, and this lake forming due to the movement of glacier and also due to the formation of hollow type of structure. So students, this was the erosional activity of ice or glacier. After that, now I am going to discuss with you depositional activity of glacier. So students, when these glaciers are moving from one place to another place, then they are responsible to take many small sand, silt, ice and soil with it, and where they are stopped, these glaciers responsible for the deposition of all the materials and thus responsible for the formation of glacial moraines. In simple way we can say, where these glaciers deposited all the materials whatever taken by them from their whole journey from one area to another area, that deposition is known as glacial moraines. Alright. After that, your next topic is work of wind. So my dear students, as I told you in my previous explanation that on the surface of the earth, sea waves, ice and wind are very powerful and responsible for the erosional and depositional activity. I think you are all well known about the wind and their speed. When wind is moving nearby the open area or on the open area, then they are moving at a very high speed, and we can observe and understand the movement of wind and wind speed in open area. This we can see very clearly in desert area. So students, when in open desert winds are moving with very high speed, then they are responsible for the erosion of lower portion of rock. As I told you in my previous explanation that wind which are blowing at a very high speed, then those winds can take with themselves dust particles, a very small pebbles with it nearly 1 meter, or we can say these high speed blowing wind can carry dust particles and pebbles with it near the 1 meter, or they can carry 1 meter these dust particles with it. So students, when these winds blowing or moving, it lifts and transports sands and dust particles from one place to another place. And during the time of movement, whatever rocks are coming in their area, then these winds eroding the lower portion of the rock, which you can see on whiteboard. Students, winds eroding the lower portion of rock in the compare of top, and due to the continuous movement of wind from one area to another area with very high speed and dust particles continuously, after some time later we can observe, we can see that these blowing wind eroding the lower portion of the rock in the compare of top. So after some time we can see a rock with wider top and lower eroded portion of that rock, and that rock look like a mushroom type of rock. So you can understand that during the movement of wind with high speed and dust particles, wind eroding the lower portion of the rock in the compare of top. In this way, these moving wind are responsible for the carving or the creation of the mushroom type of rocks in desert area. And students, when these moving wind stop or they can unable to carry all these dust particles with it due to the some barrier or due to the some problem in their moving path, then all the sands falls and get deposited in low hill-like structure. Students, as you can see, I have drawn on the white chart sand dunes. As I told you that when these wind blowing with high speed and stop somewhere due to the any kind of barrier in their path, then suddenly moving wind falls sand and get deposited sand in that area, and due to the continuous deposition of sand on that particular place, a low hill type of structure we can see. And students, this hill is formed by the sand, that's why it is called or known as sand dunes. And students, as I told you that wind can carry grains of sand or very fine and light pebbles with it. Because of these sands, dust particles and pebbles are very fine and light. That's why wind can carry it over very long distances. And students, where we can see a group of sand dunes or sand dunes deposited in a very large area. So when these sand dunes deposited in very large area somewhere in desert, that group of sand dunes which are deposited in very large areas is known as loess. Okay, so students, for today's that's all, and in my next explanation I will send you question and answer. And anywhere if you have any confusion or problem, then contact me. Thank you and have a nice day.